What is going on, everyone? We are back. ABJ Podcast presents Not Cool in High School, episode 157. Carrie, we're going to be doing the original Carrie with the one and only Trixy Valentine. Before we get into it, please check the links below to support not only myself, but my co-host tonight on all of their platforms. Follow them on social medias, TikToks, the Twitters, the Instagrams, the websites, the whole nine. They have a lot of shows coming up, so please go do that. Also, if you want to support the podcast, your first time here over on YouTube, hit subscribe, and that thumbs up button helps out more than you know. Share this out to your friends, let them know. And there's a lot of great content that we have covered and more to come. We have a little bit for everybody and a lot more in the pipeline for all really cool pieces of content. Also, merchandise. If you want to grab some t-shirts or merchandise, it is links below as well. If you do buy anything, send me a photo of you in the merchandise so we can put that on social media and blast you out there. And thank you for your contributions of helping to keep the podcast alive. We have a Patreon as well as a membership tier that you can join on YouTube as well. We just unlocked that with hitting monetization. So thank you everyone for supporting that. The goal is 2K by the end of the summer. So if you share this out, let's get that goal. Yesterday we did a podcast. I Saw the TV Glow with Kim Rose. We will be back tomorrow with King of the Ring 95. It's one of the worst wrestling shows of all time, and we're going to review it. Then we'll be back on Sunday, because usually these wrestling shows happen on Sunday. We'll be back on Sunday to do a What If series, and we're going to rebook the whole show and try to make it better. And then we end out the month with Sammy Chaos, a local independent wrestler. She's absolutely unbelievable. She's an ass kicker, and she will kill you. And then we'll be closing out the month on Tuesday with the former bass player and original founding member of Taking Back Sunday, Eddie Reyes. So if you are a huge Taking Back Sunday fan like myself, that's going to be a lot of fun. Met Eddie a while ago when I hosted a music festival. Eddie's band at the time was part of that festival, so I got to meet him, chat with him. But it's been a long time, so we're going to catch up and have some fun. So we got pro wrestling, we got horror, we got drag queens, we got drag monsters, and recently we have a little bit of everything on the podcast. I'm super appreciative, but the reason I'm even in this drag space of meeting these amazing performers and amazing people and being educated on all things LGBTQ and making me really proud to have my ally flag is 100% my co-host today. They are an educator. I let them go through their whole title because I will definitely botch it. But they also are killing it tonight with the look. Let's bring them in right away. Trixy Valentine. What's going on? Oh, easy. I'm sorry.
How you doing, Anthony? How you doing?
I'm doing amazing. Give everyone the rundown. You have a very long title, and I don't want to mess it up because you will hurt me.
So my title is the Mixed Trans New Jersey 2024. That sits right to my right. It is my right side. It's like left for y'all. That is my current title. I do many different things. I'm a queer inclusive sex educator. I run my own business called Mixed Kelly Queer Education that specializes in LGBTQIA plus diversity, equity, inclusion, training, and consulting. That has been running for the last 4 years. And there's a lot more you can find with me, but we're not here for me. We're here for Carrie.
We're here for you as well. Listen, you're part of the show. Because we haven't done a full episode. Actually, you're probably the first person who will transfer from the co-host of the movie reviews to having your own podcast soon. So we will tell your story in full very, very soon. But like I said before, the education aspect side of things, as someone who grew up in now I'm not saying I'm closed-minded because I feel like I am very open-minded, very eager to learn, very conscious of people's feelings and trying to be more inclusive. But there's a lot of times where I felt like I was stepping on eggshells. I didn't know what questions to ask or how to do it in an appropriate way or how to be respectful. And I'm not gonna be honest, it freaked me the fuck fuck out. Like when I would talk to people, I was always very like, I don't want to be inappropriate. I don't want to say something bad, because I also do have a fucked up sense of humor and a dark sense of humor, because that's just how I cope. Because I was kind of like Carrie. I was picked on a lot. You know what I mean? But you have been absolutely amazing in accepting and helping, but also still keeping that humor. Like recently we've been hanging out a lot lately, and like the just busting each other and fucking with each other and joking with each other and like taking digs that like normally would tear someone's feelings apart, but that's the type of friend I need. And you have been absolutely amazing. I love you to death, and I'm super happy that we went from just supporting each other, like me supporting your drag shows, to becoming close friends, and that means a lot to me.
Yeah, I honestly thank you for everything as well. I think my favorite thing about this friendship is that we are supporting each other. It is literally support to support. There's no animosity. There's no jealousy. It's literally just like, I got you. It's weird, right? Because like we both walked into each other's lives in different ways, and now it's just like, nope, that's just Tony.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been amazing, and like the group that we've kind of made has been really, really fun with Dante and everybody. Like I think brunch is coming up. We have another brunch date coming up, which would be a lot of fun. And just, you know, we had to come back and whip some ass after you fucked us up in laser tag, so we destroyed you in that board game. Just saying, it was ugly. I mean, I didn't contribute at all, but it was
dyslexic people on your team. What did you like? We're over here like I'm just pronouncing it the way I see it, hoping it is, and everyone's just like, nope, you're just pronouncing it, and I'm just like,
yeah, my dyslexia would not allow me to be good at the game, and Lily's dyslexia made her a goddamn superhero. But all right, so let's start off right away. Carrie, the original Carrie. So the question is why did we pick this movie? And you would pick this movie. So why was this a movie that you picked?
So, well, I will say, I originally picked Nightmare on Elm Street because, specifically the second one, because of the queer culture that's behind it. But then I was like, hold on, Carrie has to be one of my favorite horror movies because the villain is not Carrie. Like, the villain is not Carrie. She is just glam. She is trying her best. She is doing everything she can. And she just had enough of it. And I think the other part to it is the movie itself. Like, I love the cinematography for it. I love the way the lighting goes, the organic culture of it. It's just a beautiful story and how it unfolds. And it's so basic, like in a good way. Like, I mean, like it is a basic plot, basic line, but the way it's executed is just like, you have to rewatch it again because these details start coming out. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. Oh, yeah, no, that was a thing. And I would also say it's relatable, right? So like there's this poor innocent girl who doesn't know much, who's getting bullied. And no one, I shouldn't say no one, the teacher kind of helps a little bit. And the one student's, flips a leaf or whatever. But basically it's like her against the world. And like, there's so many people that can relate to her story and wish that they can just have telekinesis power and just, burn the school down.
Well, in the book, it's not just the school. The entire town gets it. Like Carrie has, according to the book, I think Carrie has one of the highest kill counts. Like the whole town nuked. You know what I mean? Like did not mess around. Is this a normal style of horror or movie that you consume? Are you more into the horror drama aspect? I would more probably put this in a horror drama, but we'll get to that in a moment.
I do like a good horror drama. Like I would say if there's not a slasher to it, so slasher films are probably my absolute favorite.
Yeah.
Actually, we'll start with my first favorite are movies that have like kill plots, no kill plots to them. We're just more interested on how they die. So that's like Saw, Final Destination, things like that. Those are probably my favorite. But if there's not a slasher in it, that's a good slasher. It's been a while since we've had a good slasher. These horror dramas that have a deeper meaning behind it, but also they don't give you the jump scares. They give you that like what's happening. Like you start almost having a sympathetic feeling for this character who is just kind of crazy and psychotic, and like it makes you want to yell at your screen and just be like, she did nothing wrong. And so I definitely, honestly, a movie that kind of reminds me of Carrie, that's not necessarily a horror movie but the same dramatic, is the movie that came out not that long ago, Promising Young Woman. And like the same energy, those, like if someone's like, what movies give the same energy? It's almost those two type of things, except in Young and Sprung Woman, the main character, she's actually iconic in her behavior. Carrie's not necessarily iconic, but you know,
My mom in the chat throwing shade. Look at her, crazy.
Oh, hi Nancy.
Yeah, my mom learned how to use social media. That was a mistake. Yeah, so you did say this is your favorite genre as well. I grew up definitely liking slasher more. I always leaned into like the occult style horror. If there was a demon or a devil or evil entity, I was all about that. I love a good monster movie. Give me a monster. Sometimes even like a monster destroying the city. I'm all about that. But recently, as I've been growing up, and I think the thing that scares me the most in the world is humans and society, and how society could easily fall because people seem to be sheep, and they will just listen and blindly follow and hurt their fellow man because they're being told to by a higher power or an influencer, political, whatever it may be. These horror movies that are more tuned in with culture scare me more. Like these A24 films, like where you're like, oh, you know what I mean? Like where it kind of like, or Jordan Peele is doing these movies where it's just like, no, the scary part is non-accepting people. Like those movies fuck with me more than anything, and I think they're very well done.
Agreed. I would say productions like A24 are not like top tier horror now these days. Like that's the top tier of like you. How can you not like them? You know what I mean? Probably because it's too realistic. Like I'll take the movie Thanksgiving Day or something like that. Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
The part of that
Thanksgiving, I think, right? Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, Thanksgiving. First of all, applaud to them. We have to do this for November. It's coming up. I'm just letting you know.
Yes.
I won't talk about it too much, but applaud to them. I'm like, wow, officially like a horror movie around Thanksgiving. But like between Halloween and Christmas, now you're finally adding a third in there. I love it. But it was in that scene in the beginning that disturbed me out of the whole movie was the grocery store scene.
Okay, I have yet to see that movie. I'm actually holding off for the review.
I can't. I won't ruin it for you though.
Yeah.
I won't ruin it for you. So it's cheesy. It's campy. It's giving you that 80s vibe of slashers in it. But the one scene in it that like makes my gut turn has nothing to do with the slasher.
Okay, I like that. I like that. So, Carrie is a 1976 American supernatural horror film directed by Brian De Palma, and it was written and screenplayed by Lauren D. Cohen, and it was adapted from Stephen King's 1974 novel of the same name. It has Sissy Spacek and as Carrie White, a teenage girl who is constantly mocked and bullied at her school. The film also features Piper Laurie, Amy Irving, Nancy Allen, William Catt, PJ Souls, Betty Buckley, and John Travolta in supporting roles. Yes, a lot of big actors all got their starts in horror movies, or very early on in their career did horror movies. John Travolta is one of those actors who did that. This is the first film in the Carrie franchise. There has been many more after. Not all of them are good. The film was based off Stephen King's first published novel, and it was an intriguing story that pushed both the studio's permission to direct, with why Spacek was encouraged by her husband to audition. The first of more than 100 film and television productions were adapted based on Stephen King's works. So yeah, this is a big deal. Obviously, every time Stephen King's books get turned into films, it was always a big deal. We'll kind of touch into that more a little later, but it was a commercial success. It grossed over $33.8 billion against its $1.8 million budget, so it made money. It was received 2 nominations for the 49th Academy Awards for Best Actress for Spacek and Best Supporting Actress for Laurie. So yeah, this did really well. Like this is one of the movies that definitely broke into getting horror movies awards and being put in that light. Its runtime is 98 minutes. Its release date was November 3rd, 1976. It was produced by Red Bank Films. Tons of movie. I'm not going to go through everything on there, but once again, yeah, box office $33.8 million after a $1.8 million budget. Who knows what it's made after? But the plot of this one is a 16-year-old Carrie White is a shy teenage girl who lives with her fanatically religious and unstable mother, Margaret, who is a loner. She's a loner and bullied by her peers. While Carrie is experiencing her first period while in school, she panics, having never been told about menstruation. Her class laughs at her, throwing tampons and sanitary pads at her while the gym teacher, Miss Collins, interferes. Margaret tells Carrie that her period was caused by sin, then locks Carrie in a prayer closet to pray to God for forgiveness. So yeah, and it just gets crazier from there. So, you know, Carrie is someone who has her body is changing. She's having these psychic abilities that she doesn't know, she doesn't understand, and the entire time she's going through a physical change in her body, she's having these supernatural powers, and she's pretty much being told by her mother that everything that's going wrong in her life is her fault and it's sin, and she needs to pray it away. The girl has no place of peace. She's just completely mentally broken. Actually, probably more stable than I would probably give her credit for. I think she's holding it together pretty well for the most part. Like, school can be very, very bad for people. People have a lot of rough times in school. And the first question I want to ask, and if you don't want to share, that's understandable. But the first question I ask, do you have a really bad bully story? Have you ever had a situation where you were really picked on, or that, like, I'm not saying it, you know, a tampon in a shower scene, but like, what was your one that sticks with you from school?
The one where I got death threats.
Okay.
So I know I'll do that. Is that all I'm giving?
My school didn't threaten. They just jumped you after school.
Yeah. So the good news is, for me, my older brother was the captain of the football team. So no one physically wanted to come at me. I shouldn't say they didn't. I've actually had people shove me. People have tried putting their hands on me. I'm not afraid to stand on my own. So, like, if it happened, it happened. But thankfully I've never had to get into too many physical fights. I've just shoved people back, and I'm like, if we're gonna go, we're gonna go. But I would say the biggest thing that happened to me was for a school event. I was believe this or not, I was the president of a club about diversity, if that's hard to imagine. And I wanted to do this new event for the school for people to try to get out of their comfort zones a little bit and get to know people they don't really know. And so I really supported the faculty, and the school knew that we needed to do this, in the sense of, like, we can't tell them no because there's nothing wrong that they're doing. But it was the first time I've ever seen our teachers, like, show up to places in case something were to happen. And it did not really go that well. There was a lot of arguments. There was actually a few fights that had happened. And then when people started finding out, like, who put this together, it was me. I was getting death threats. It was bad for a little bit. People were just so mean and nasty because they didn't want to go meet someone they didn't know. And it was just a very toxic situation that I pushed away in my memories because I was like, I don't want to have that. But I learned right away in the very beginning of my life, like, in the career that I have, like, people are going to be like this wherever you go. So when it comes to bullying, no, I've never had someone throw tampons at me, but I've had people throw things at me. I've had people threaten my life multiple times since the age of, like, 14.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to I had to learn how to run fast and find my way home through the woods, because like, every way home somebody be waiting, or a group of people be waiting. Because I was the type of kid who was just like, I cope with humor, so then I would make fun of myself, and then I would annoy them, and I get to a point where they can no longer use words; they had to use violence. Also, I hated gym class. Gym class, mostly elementary to middle school, was the worst, because that's your most vulnerable, right? So the gym teacher knows that it's a situation that it's like every school teacher, and this is where I blame teachers a lot. Like, every teacher, especially gym teachers, know that that's like the scariest part for most people in their adolescence, and they never monitor the locker room. Every gym teacher I've ever had never monitored the locker room. So you're trying to change, and if you don't change, you get a failing grade. So you're trying to change in front of people, and you're like getting assaulted while changing your clothes, or you do change your clothes, and then you have to, like, be vulnerable enough to hide your possessions in a room that no one's gonna be monitoring the whole time. I've had my clothes thrown in urinals. I've had, like, my stuff stolen or destroyed, or, you know, that was shitty. I had to get sent home from school a couple times to go get some stitches, so that happened a couple times. Wow. Yeah, school sucked for a while there. I got picked on for wearing Kmart jeans. My name was Route 66. That's what they called me because I couldn't afford designer clothes.
Yeah. I mean, it's ironics. Yeah, it's ironics. Locker rooms, like, because in Carrie, the very opening scene is the locker room, and that's exactly what the first experience is. And I know for me, locker rooms were the worst place to ever be. It's where I've had people. So for me, because I wasn't out back then, but I always had feminine mannerisms. I was always expressive. I also was just like nerdy, and sometimes people confuse nerdy with queerness, or sometimes they overlap, I should say.
Yeah.
And for me, like, that is where I've had these boys would like be more, they would be mocking in homophobia, right? So they would be mocking LGBT mannerisms, and that's where I've had them put their hands on my shoulders, my back. Like that's actually probably the first time I've ever been sexually harassed and assaulted, was in locker rooms, not knowing the terminology back then. But there was no, like, the gym teachers were in their little closet thing that's right next to the room, not checking on anything, not making sure things are happening. They just expect if something's going to happen, you're going to go to them. And I'm like, no, because why would we? Like, just so we can get.
I made the mistake of, and I used to be really mad at my mom for it, but I used to come home and be like, Mom, like, I'm going through it. Like, this is not fun for me. And then she would then go to the school and make complaints, and then the school would essentially just tell the bully, like, leave him alone because we're sick of dealing with his mom. And then I would get picked on worse because the school didn't do a proper job of disciplining. So it got to the point where I stopped even talking to her. I was like, I can't, because if I report it to you, you're trying to be protective mom, and it only makes my situation worse. It sucked for a long time.
I will say my mother did step in at the appropriate times because people were afraid of my mom. Because for us, there were a few examples where the bullies were actually the teachers. So that made it a lot easier in the sense of, like, something could happen, because my mom wasn't afraid to, like, literally get out of work, drive straight to the school and be like, so what's going on? Like, no warning, no nothing, just shows up.
Yeah. All right, well, let's kind of, I'll go to my second bullet point. Now, the second scariest aspect of this movie is, no, and I'm not trying to be offensive, but this is just my take, quacky, kooky, religious people. And that fucking Jesus statue in the closet is the scariest thing in this entire movie, with the red, creepy yellow eyes. I want one. I want that Jesus statue. If I can find one, I would definitely buy one. Like, it's, who makes that? Like, right. It's the creepiest thing of all time. Like, who made that and goes, that's my savior, that's my guy? Like, no, that looks like the devil.
Honestly, it was probably, like, seeing the movie was probably like handmade by the mom, you know?
Yeah. Oh my God. She put a little tea light candle in her head. Like, it's creepy. Yeah.
It was the religious factor is kind of like the statuesque, or like, that's different. Like, I kind of sit there and go, couldn't be me. Like that literally could be in one of those movies that we spoke about earlier of, like, demons or something, because it couldn't be me. That I'd be like, no, I'm good. I'll go back to school. I will say the interesting part is that the whole movie is surrounded by the color red and blood. Mm-hmm. Like, that is the whole theme throughout the entire movie, even the lights and the lighting. So it's very interesting that they carried, like, how blood and the redness comes through, and then, like, everything else in it's just the religious side of it makes me just laugh. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I sit there and go, I know people like that in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, this isn't a horror movie. This is life. This is a real thing life. That's happening right here.
Yeah, and sometimes people use their religion for all the wrong reasons. You'd think, you know, if one of your things is judgment is a sin and it's just as equally wrong as every other sin, boy, do they throw that around worse than anything, huh? But when did you first consume Carrie? Remember seeing the movie Carrie? How was it introduced? Because obviously, I'm not dating myself too much, but I was definitely not alive when Carrie came out. But how was this introduced to you?
So my old next door neighbor, when we were younger, loved movies. He actually used to own the Hollywood Videos here where I live, which is no longer a thing. So for those who didn't know Hollywood Videos, there used to be other movie places like Blockbuster. Hollywood Videos was them, and he went on to be the owner of one. But before then, like before he was our babysitter, and my dad was very open to the movies that we had. And my dad's like, yeah, sure, that's fine, whatever. And so we ended up watching it. And I didn't find it scary, but I find it very entertaining. Like it was just like my problem is when I first saw it is I'm into superheroes. So when you see a girl with telekinesis power, you're like, I'm into this.
She's an X-Men.
This so good. Yeah, she's an X-Men. This is what happens when you piss off a mutant who doesn't know that they're a mutant. This is Carrie is the definition of not making it to. Yeah. So I love it. So for me, I was introduced. I loved movies. I've watched horror movies since I was like 9 years old. Like, it was just introduced. My dad was very open to it. There were a few movies like we were not allowed to watch that I can't necessarily remember, but it wasn't many, right? So he was just like, sure, if you want to watch it, you watch it, but like it's on you when you have nightmares. So.
I grew up in a family that was very into horror. They loved horror. My friends growing up were into horror. So like sleepovers growing up was like, oh, it's a sleepover. We're gonna like, I had a lot of friends who it was like all the guys slept over for the brother, but then all the girls slept over for the sister, which not always was great moves growing up. You know, when you have a bunch of young adolescent kids and you put a bunch of like let them stay till 4 a.m, have a room full of guys and girls in a room. It was character building, we'll say that. But the move was go because our town, for how small it is, it's 4 little red lights. We had 2 video stores, so we would go to the video stores, and I was fortunate enough that both video stores were owned by friends at their families. So we would just walk in, pick a movie, and leave. And then every Friday, like every weekend or sleepover, was we sit and watch a horror movie. So horror movie has always been something into it. My aunt Colleen, who was really, really into horror, was always also like, and Uncle Steve, both no longer with us, but they were both always like, oh, we're gonna fuck these kids up. Like we're like when they're over here tonight, we're gonna put a movie on, and they got enjoyment of us watching horror movies. And I kind of get the same way. Like when someone hasn't experienced a movie or something in pop culture, it's like, oh, I get just as much enjoyment watching them experiencing for the first time. And I think Carrie is one of those movies that I think stood out for that generation. And it's almost like a rite of passage for that generation to kind of pass it down to the young one. Like we're like, what horror movie should we watch this weekend? And Carrie's one of the top 50, I would say, that's like always recommended. I feel like if you haven't seen this movie, that's insane to me. It's like it's like a must-watch horror movie.
Yeah, it's a must-watch just to know where it comes from and unfolds. It's like I think anything Stephen King you should watch. It also makes me think of like John Hitchcock movies as well, because he was one of the originals of sorry, thank you, Alfred Hitchcock, who had really good classics. Like I remember watching Rear Window. Why? Because my mom told me I had to watch it. She's like, if you want to see real horror movie, watch Rear Window and The Birds. And I did. And I was like it's interesting because like these were the big horror movies back in her days, and like they're nothing like they are today. Yeah. But like you enjoy the organic horror moviness to it because they had to do that all themselves. There were no really high computer type technology that was helping them with some of these images. Makeup tutorials and looks were not as big, but like for some of these scenes to happen so instantly as they are now. And so when I think of Carrie's a classic, and I think it's a digestible classic a little bit too, because for those who are afraid of like jump scares and the music, right? So like Carrie doesn't rely on the music for the whole movie of where it's suspense, but it does happen because like right when the blood hits, the lights go, there's the music. But like there are other parts. I
would say the music definitely is a huge part of this movie.
It is, but not in a scary way, right? Like so in horror movies,
tone setting. It's tone
music
setting.
Like playing to yeah, it sets the tone rather than tries to hype your suspense.
Yeah.
And now I think a lot of horror movies now today just rely on the suspense part of it and not the mood setting part of it.
Yeah. And how you're going back to Hitchcock, and also we'll talk about a fellow queen. Do you know that Lady Gaga used Hitchcock movies in lyrics to a song?
No, I did not.
So in the song Bad Romance, She says, I want your Psycho, your Vertigo shtick. I want you in my rear window when your baby is sick. I want your love.
Yeah.
So she's talking about Psycho, Vertigo, Rear Window, and Rosemary's Baby.
Yes, iconic.
Yeah, she's amazing. I always point that out, like when I think of her, like that was a huge thing for me as a Lady Gaga fan, because how enthralled she was with old horror. Like I was like, she mixed music with horror movies. All right, so let's get into. We'll kind of mix it up a little bit. I always say the favorite things first, and then your not favorite. But there's no order. Now this is where spoilers are going to come in. If you haven't seen Carrie, it's your fault at this point. Yeah. But we'll kind of go through, and if we can mix and match any part of the movie. You don't have to stay in chronological order, and it could be good or bad. And I'll defer to you. Give us one of your favorite or least favorite things about the movie.
Oh, I'll give you my favorite, because it's my favorite line of the whole movie. They're all gonna laugh at you. They're all gonna laugh at you. That line, the way, like, when she is standing up there and she's just frozen, because it's 100%. She's Delulu. She is 100% delusion. Like these, there. I would say like there were like actually 2 people laughing at her, not the whole crowd. The rest of the crowd is like, what's going on? And she just 100% crazy Delulu. She is doing her thing, but like that scene, I want to eat, sleep, and breathe it. Like it's the moment that, like, the way the cameras go, the way the lights go on, and because then right after it's just straight up red lights, the eyes moves, the door shuts, and I'm just I want it all. Like I can't stop. I can't look away. I'm not looking away. I don't want to look. And then the way they do the 2 screens, right? So they have 2 different visions of what's happening going on. And like this one disappears, the new ones. So you have to rewatch it just to make sure you didn't miss anything, because there are literally 2 scenes happening at one, which I love that, because it's like investment of like, now I got to rewind this, like what's going on to see the other side. And I love it. I like, it's just so simple, but it like gets stuck in your head. And then that's where music definitely comes in. You're just like, and like now I'm the whole day, I'm just like, they're all gonna laugh at you. They're all gonna like, it's just, I love it.
So that line is iconic for that movie, but it's not immediately what I think of when I hear that line. So one of the first things I ever purchased for myself, side note, tangent story, but it's funny to me. I had a friend who, unbeknownst to us, stole a whole bunch of money from his grandmother. And we got a ride to the mall, and he busted out more money than any of us ever seen ever. And he's like, you get a couple $100, you get a couple $100, and we're gonna go and buy. And we're fucking like under 10, and we're walking around with a couple $100 each in our pocket, and never once was like, we didn't have concept of money. We're like, cool, thanks, bud. And I bought Adam Sandler's "They're All Gonna Laugh at You" comedy CD. No, they're all gonna laugh at you. Like that's so growing up, that's what I always listened to, and then realize, oh shit, that's pulled right from Carrie. Yeah, but yeah, that's so when I think of that quote, I think of that. So for me, I'll start off with a negative. You want positive, I go negative. I don't want to sound like I'm a Debbie Downer, but I do love this movie. But rewatching it as much as I have, and as I get older, it's one of those movies, to me, the more I watch it, I think the more I fall out of love with it. I appreciate for what it is, for what it was at the time, but I think a lot, like, I think we get to an age, and I think we're gonna have a debate here, is where people say you can't remake things, you can't touch the original, you can't do this. But also, there's a point in time in movies where people say the book was better. I read the book, and the movie was shit compared to the book, because it didn't capture you as much as the book captured you. And I've never read the Carrie book. It's in my collection. It's right. I'm staring right at it right now. But when I seen the original and then I seen the remake, I think the remake, the acting and the tone setting and just I feel like it grabs more, and I think it embodies what the idea of Carrie is. Now, I think if you watch that movie when it first comes out, it's iconic, it's amazing. But as we learn more about Carrie and the Stephen King universe and how powerful Carrie was, and then learning about the book and being like, oh, I wish they would have put that in there. The movie to me almost seems like a what if. it had that remake. And then when they finally made it, I was like, oh, this is a lot more than what I want. This is what I wanted the movie to be originally. So I do love the movie, but I think the big thing for me is acting fell flat. Now, I know it's 80s. Horror movies aren't taken seriously. It's very low budget. They're not getting the top billing people. Now, some of those people became top billing people, but the mom and the best friend turned good person at the end are probably the two best actors in the movie. Carrie herself, Sissy says it was fantastic as well, but I think when Chloe played her in the original, it surpasses the original, which is not easy to do because they're both really, really good. But I think a lot of the acting fell super flat, and I think at sometimes when you're watching it, you're like I was more laughing at the movie than I was like appreciating it, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I think that was one of the consensus I had with some of the acting in the original is not my favorite. Hello, Dante, and thank you. Glamour Carrie with these rhinestones up in here.
I love the rhinestone blood. It's so funny because I just had on Scarlet and they literally had like slashes and blood running down their face, and you're like the pretty blood. I sparkle.
Yeah, I'm over here like, hi, how you doing? I'm Rhinestones fix everything. I definitely think the acting in the original was not my favorite. I will say that. Like the only person, there are two people. Actually, no. Out of the everyone who played, it was the background characters I was not a big fan of. Like John Travolta, not a big fan of his acting. But like Carrie, the teacher, the mom, and the main bully, all four of them I thought had great acting skills within the movie in itself. I really believed their characters. I really wanted it. Honestly, the one that acted the best was the mother, in my opinion. She sold 8 and served it all up, and like no one can outdo her. But when the negative that really comes to me from the original, I agree. We do fall out of it, but I also have to take myself back into the time of when it was released, because the other thing is, if I think about the remake, do I love it because it's more modern, or do I love it for what it is? And so, for me, I'll take it as like the car scene, because the remake, the car scene's much more elongated, right? They're lifting it up in the air. It's all these other things. In the original, it's just like and they die. I love that. I love that it's focused more on like Carrie and not them, and like this whole revenge type thing. She's just like, I think the thing I love, I'm over here like I'm trying to find a negative, but I'm making it positive. The thing I love though in that car scene is just like she's like, I'm over it. Like she's just over it. Whereas the remake was all about like this revenge type thing. But I will say, the one thing I didn't really like was the deaths in the original. Like I'm like, you're just spraying people with water. Like I was just like, I mean, yes, there's electrocution, there's the thing that falls, but outside of those two things, I'm like, I want more. So I will say the remake, I really loved the more factor of it.
People getting fucked up by an errant fire hose pissed me off. Like the whole time, like, and the fire.
I know. That was probably my like, oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. Well, speaking of car scenes, there's a scene where Travolta and his buddy, he's going out on his date, and she's going with the no bra look. Travolta likes it. He keeps looking down, and his buddy's like, "You want to go drink?" And he keeps seeing some nips, because this is very, very sexually driven movie. It's high school kids, adolescents who are all sexually charged up, and she kind of uses her sexuality to tell her plot to her boyfriend. Hey, here's what I need you to do, because I don't have the guts to do it, but I need you to murder a pig. I need you to get me the blood. I need you to help me set up a trap that we're going to do all these things. And the best way I'm going to do it is I'm going to give you a little blowy blow, a little ABJ, if you will. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's not just the ABJ podcast we're talking here, but Travolta can't feel good about himself, because the entire time that she's hanging out with her ABJ podcast, she's having a full-blown conversation. So someone's mouth's not very full. She's like, Carrie, I fucking hate Carrie. He's like, all right, give me a little bit of something. Like, give me a little confidence here. It's one of my favorite scenes because the whole time, I think it's been parodied a lot in other movies. I think Scary Movie did that, like where he's getting head and she's just like, so anyway, I went grocery shopping, and he's like,
yeah.
That's one of my favorite but funniest scenes of the whole thing. Like just talking through an ABJ podcast.
I'm just like, the only thing I have to say is it's just not mouth filling.
Yeah. Definitely wasn't a Saturday Night Fever. You know what I mean?
Right. It's definitely what it's giving, right? Desperate.
Yeah. She was willing to go that far. She was rounding second base just so she can get some blood on Carrie. It was she went above and beyond, you know. That's probably, I don't know why.
I mean, I think that's like
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like she's open about jealousy, but then like Carrie gets revenge, and I'm like, but who's the real winner? Because it's also not him.
Yeah. Yep. No, I think Travolta gets it the worst the whole movie in that scene to me. Yeah, listen, he was really like, there's like not only the fact that, you know, someone can have a full conversation while they're performing oral on him, but the fact that like he had a lot of built up rage. He quickly killed that pig. He had no problem smacking his girl around every time she called him a dumb shit. Like he had some issues. Like dumb shit was a trigger for him. But yeah. The teacher. Actually, I'll serve it back to you. Give us a scene or a thing about the movie.
No, we could definitely talk about the teacher because I loved the teacher's caringness towards Carrie, and like I hated that she died. I hated that she died in the original. I hated that she died in the original because she was there for her. She was the only one, and I was like, back then, school must have been some kind of thing because she over here hitting students and
beat the shit out of these girls.
True.
She's like, you keep it up, I'm gonna knock you down. Like,
so I loved her. I thought she was the hero. Yeah, yes, it is. So yeah,
so there's a scene for her I didn't like. Oh, sorry, there's a delay. We have a little delay. I apologize. So the teacher, I'm glad you brought her up. I don't like the scene where she kind of gaslights Carrie, right? So she sees Carrie and Carrie's like, he just asked me to the prom. And she's like, well, maybe he's being nice to you. And like gaslit her. And Carrie's like, no, I think this is a setup. I think it's a joke. I don't know why they just won't leave me alone. And the teacher's like, I don't think that's what it is. I think everything's going to be great. I think you should go. I think you should do it. And then brings her in and shows her how pretty she is. And I was like, no, I think Carrie's in the right here. She's trying to protect herself. And you kind of made her let her guard down. Like you gaslit her into a situation. But then instead of asking the bullies first, like when the bullies, then she goes to the bullies next and she's like, this better not be a fucking game. And they're clearly laughing about it. Well, the boyfriend is, the girl's really not. The girl's legit trying to like, I think this is a nice thing to do. And the boyfriend's like, I'm only doing this because I'm trying to get laid by this chick at some point. I'm trying to have my John Travolta moment. You know, and it's just like, I felt like the teacher should have went to them first and been like, what's the deal? And then felt it out before she kind of gaslit Carrie into making her have that confidence to accept it.
So I agree a little bit to that. I think the gym teacher was trying to be like what a teacher would be, of like, let me support the awkward, quiet girl and make her feel some kind of way so that way she can actually enjoy herself. And I think she just tried too hard, right? Like Carrie clearly knew she was not the one, and she could have just let Carrie be Carrie and like moved on. Like, I hate to say this, if Carrie never went to prom, none of this would have happened. So who's the real person who did all this? Let's just think about it. That teacher tried way too hard when she could have just been like, bye girl, have fun with your mom, you'll live, you'll go into accounting or some kind of thing in life and like live it.
Yeah. You'll probably shoot up your office one day, or you'll probably burn it down with your telekinesis powers, but at least I'm still gonna survive. You know what I mean? How was your prom? Did you go to prom?
I did go to prom. It was okay. It wasn't too bad. The only thing I regret of my prom was I wish I took my best friend at the time to prom, who's my best friend now in real life. Like, yeah, in real life, the whole time it's real life. But like my current best friend, we've been best friends since the 12th grade, senior year. And that was the only thing I wish we did differently. But we had a good prom. It was decent. It was cute. You know, it's way too fantasized over what like media and does, because like in real life I'm like, it's just another dance, like it's not that deep.
Yeah, I didn't go to prom. I didn't do prom. I didn't do senior week. I did almost the very little that you would normally do in your senior year. I just was over it at that point in school. I was ready to go figure things out and get out of school and call it a day. I was done. I've had my fill. And I mean, I didn't say I didn't get along with a lot of people, but I was kind of at the point in school where I've lost a lot of trust with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I was cool with everybody. I was very nice with everybody still, but I kept a lot of people at distance. And I think by the time I hit my senior year, I was like, I'm good. I'm ready to go and see the world and figure things out, because I feel like this closed-minded school is not for me anymore. So I didn't do any of that. I went to a winter formal at a different school once, but I never really, I went to other schools' events. I didn't really go to my own. But yeah, I didn't experience prom. Yeah. Well, I don't miss. Actually, I went to an adult prom when I was older. That was a lot of fucking fun. I think more. That's the thing that happens a lot. Bars do like adult proms where everyone shows up in like ballroom gowns and tuxedos and stuff, and they treat it like it's a real prom. They're fucking fun because you can, party and have a good time. I did an adult prom, but I never did high school prom. Last thing for me, not last thing. I have one more thing. Kinda. But my favorite character in the whole movie is Hat Girl. I want Hat Girl's hat. I know she sucked. She was a bully, but just the fact that they really had the attention to detail to always have that hat on her with the rainbow on it and the whole nine. Yeah, that wasn't prom. That was winter formal. And the Sven story is not ready for the podcast because while it's a very entertaining story, it was very not nice of me to do. But yeah. Yes, I like Hat Girl. That's why I'm wearing the red hat. If I can find a copy of Hat Girl's hat, I would definitely buy it. But there's a scene where for me, that really sets Hat Girl apart. And when they're all getting their hair done for prom, Hat Girl is under the hairdryer and her hat is on top of the hairdryer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like she refuses to get away from that hat, so she's not wearing it, but it's on top of her head in some form of capacity. If you don't catch it, study Hat Girl in this movie, because that hat, there's not a scene where you don't see her without it, or it's near her, or it's in the scene when she's there. Hat Girl is my favorite. What do you got?
I love Hat Girl in the sense of like her, like I feel like she's a cool person. She just hangs out with the wrong crowd. But I will say she was like one of the few people who actually laughed at Carrie when the blood happened. So I don't know about that.
She sucks.
When it comes to, oh yeah, the scene. I have to think.
If you need more time to think, I have another thing I could bring up.
So yeah, sure. I'm trying to think. Oh, one of the things that I didn't see happen in the movie, which was when right before the gym teacher like kicks them all out and makes them all go to detention. Because if you see on the doors, like it shows like Carrie eat shit, right? And so it has all that on the door. So it like peaks at the level of bullying that happened beyond just that like locker room scene, because they really don't hear too much. I also think the only other scene I think about that's kind of weird a little bit is when the English teacher is reading that poem and he's just like, beautiful. Like it was kind of one of those scenes I rewatched. I was like, I don't fully get this. And this is like that creepy teacher that, but at the same time is like not.
So like for me, example, growing up, getting picked on and bullied, I was bullied within my class. And even though I went to a really small school and everybody knew everybody, you still had those moments of like, oh, you have a study hall, or hey, you have a class and you have at least one friend or one thing in those class. So like, so even though I had it, like I was picked on by certain people for a long time, like I didn't really have it too much in high school. At the time of high school, once puberty hit and I grew up a little bit, and I was more willing to defend myself, a lot of it stopped. But when I wasn't really defending myself and I was really tiny and scrawny and glasses and the whole nine, it was rough. But the Carrie, like when something like that happens, where it's not just getting picked on in a class, where it's kind of still private and it's amongst that class. Like if someone's writing your name on a public form, it now your bullying goes from just your small class and your peers to the entire school's in on it. You know what I mean? And then the teachers are in on it. And if you think back, like that, there was people in your school that probably had it worse than anybody. Like I had it bad, but I can name 3 people who I was like, they had it way worse than me. Like I'm thankful I didn't have it the way they had it. You know what I mean? And like, and that's when that's when, you know, like it could be someone in an underclass or a older class or a completely different class, but you know, they're the ones everyone fucks with. And you're like, whew. Like, and it sucks because now growing up, I'm like, I wish I would have done more for those people. But at the same time, when you're trying to survive, it's like, better you than me, kid. Like, hey, Travis is an idiot. And you're just like, fuck with him, beat his ass today. I need a break. But yeah, so her getting her name written on the wall and the teachers, and like it was a larger spectrum that they didn't really showcase, but they did subtly through stuff like that. Definitely. So my last thing is going to be on the lines of John Travolta again. It's going to be kind of on the sexual level, and it cracks me up and it humors me. Mama Carrie's got a I think she's got a stab fetish. I think she's got a knife fetish because she was stabbed through the hands, through the body, through everywhere. And she treated being stabbed like it was a Pantene Pro V commercial. She enjoyed that shit way too much.
Yeah.
To the point where Carrie had to cover her ears because she's like, I think I murdered my mom into an orgasm. Because wowzer, Carrie's mom got a little weird kink going on. I don't know what it is, but that stab scene, every time I see it, I'm like, okay, do you, boo boo? You know, everyone has their thing, but I think that's Carrie's mom's thing. I'm gonna ruin this movie for somebody.
I mean, it was the moment of like she's like crucifying her mom, but her mom, I think it had to do with both the stab part of it, but also like the religious factor of it, because now she's equating herself to the higher power at that point. So
I didn't get that at all.
You know, maybe she's like,
groans and groans.
I'm officially
she's like, and Carrie's like, la, 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 la. She's in the corner with her fingers in her ears, like, this is not how I envisioned it. I gotta ruin this. And that's what essentially what happened. I think Carrie was cool with destroying the school and everybody in it. And then she's like, all right, I'm gonna take my mom out. And then her mom pulled that scene off, and she's like, I can't live in this house ever again. I gotta tear it down. This has gotta go.
So if people just screamed the right way at school, it would have just ended. Like everyone would have just have to been like, yeah, I'm into being electrified and squirted with a hose, you know?
Yeah. One person. Ari says that crossed the line where he's like, oh no. Oh man. And then I would say that my favorite my favorite scene in the movie is the end. Well, there's a line in the movie that like shows you how far we've come in mental health, right? Because she's laying in bed in like a coma for some reason. She's like, oh, it was too much. I'm in a coma. But then like nothing really happened to her. I mean, she's seen some shit, but he's like, doctor said she's young enough she won't remember this in a couple of years. I'm like, she's in fucking high school. This is gonna stick with her. Like, she's not 3. Like that, she's gonna need therapy. The doctor's like, don't worry. They said she's young enough, she'll forget all about it. I was like, holy fuck, what terrible advice by a doctor. But the it still gets me to this day. I know it's coming every time. The hand gets me every time. I jump a little bit. The jump scare gets me every single time. I think it's it's the most simple yet effective jump scares in horror movie history.
Yeah, I would agree.
That one, and when someone's looking at a mirror and they open and close the mirror, it's so fucking
Oh my
overused,
gosh, I
but it
hate that.
works every time. It works every goddamn time. Yeah, I hate it. But yeah, that the Carrie jump scene at the end is for me is like one of the most iconic scenes for everything. For like that, for me, that's the movie. That's the scene that like sticks out the most. Is like, oh, the hand at the end, the hand at the end, like that trope has been used so much, and I think Carrie's the one who does it the best. Anything else positive or negative before we move on to the last little section here?
I don't think. I think we hit most of them because we're very similar in some of them.
Mm-hmm.
I like just the. I don't know. I think I'm good. I think I'm good. I mean, I will say I'm more positive about the whole experience than
I love the movie. I think it's one of those movies where I think I knew coming into it everyone was going to be like, oh, these are like everything I like about it, and it's everything everybody else likes, and I wanted to find the few things like the funny things to me that I don't hate them, but it makes the movie stand out more. Like for another example of a movie, I never knew this existed in the movie until I watched it in a movie theater, because I would have never seen this movie in theaters, but I loved Night of the Living Dead, the original Night of the Living Dead, black and white. There's a scene where they're in the house and there's a cricket in the scene. No one else pays attention to it, but when you hear it, you can never not hear it the entire movie. There's a fucking cricket. It sounds like it's on the goddamn microphone that they're plugging the room into. And when you hear it in a movie theater with a big amplified sound system, the entire movie, all I hear is, I was like, fucking kill that cricket. Like it almost ruins the movie, but it's one of those things to me that like I think of the goddamn cricket in Night of the Living Dead. And everyone who ever watched, like, what are you talking about? Go back and watch and look for it. But these are the dumb things that stick in my brain, like orgasm stab scenes and talking with your mouth not full. But overall, what after your first impressions of seeing it, maybe watching it back later, has your impressions of the movie changed? Has it aged well for you? Did it age not well for you? Where do you stand with Carrie overall?
Overall, I stand still as an iconic movie, probably one of my top favorite horror movies. I will say the more I watch it, I get that psychological understanding behind it, especially like I always go, is this what schools were like 1976? You know, I think of the time, the decade, all of those things. And I also then like start thinking about like, well, how we are today, or is this still go on? What is this thing? And I will also say the sex education behind it, right? So right. Right. The sex education behind it too is mind-blowing, because I was like, people still don't teach about menstrual cycle or like how that happens, or you know, like the hookup culture of like those are all still real things that happen that we don't talk about. That when I watch the movie now, because of my field and all I do, I'm just like, huh, well, okay then, like we still have a lot to work to do, because I feel like that's still where it's at today. Things that I will say, when they did the remake that made me feel better about it was some of the scenes they elongated or they diversified, or I like the better dialogue in the remake as well. I think the dialogue as well.
We should review the remake.
I will say
we should do the back to back eventually. Not like next episode, but like we should definitely do the remake as well.
You mean I'm gonna have to get into this space all over again? Thanks a lot. Thank you.
I agree. I still think the movie's very, very iconic. I definitely think it's a movie where if someone is young and new, if I had like a little cousin, like my little cousin's into horror, like she loves horror. She's been every time she comes over, she's always has horror movies on. She's just like me growing up. She's very driven by horror movies, which is super cool. I don't know if she's ever seen Carrie, but it would be a movie I would say, hey, I would definitely seek this movie out and watch it. This is definitely one I think you should add to your list. Even if you hate it, I think I think it's important for you as a person to say you've seen some older movies. Like every generation has those movies that you have to see, and I definitely think it is definitely still holds up to that standard and should be considered as one of the greatest movies of all time for what it is. I think, like I said, I prefer the remake, but I prefer the remake because the original was so good, and they literally kept everything about the original that was good and just enhanced it, and they did it justice, if that makes sense. And they added more to the character of Carrie with a really, really, really good actor or actress. I don't know the rules of how they do that. I think they call everyone just actors now. But yeah,
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of hers. I kind of bummed that she kind of fell off and she's not booked as much anymore. I think she's one of those people I was like, she's gonna take over the fucking world. She's so goddamn good. The movie she did where she plays the vampire in Let Me In is one of my favorite, and that was a remake too, but she was so fucking good in that. Hit Girl in Kick-Ass, she's awesome. But scale of 1 to 5, and you can use point systems. You can do 0.75, whatever you want to do. There's no, but it's up to a 5. Now for me, a 2 is still a good movie. A 3 is above, 2.53 is average. 4s are really, really hard to get for me. 5s are unachievable. Like, you have to blow me away to get a 5. So I try to protect that 4 and 5. So I want to say that when I give my score. So I don't want people to think I'm giving, if something's low, it's bad. If I say like 1 or 0.5, then the movie's dog shit. Like, but 2s and 3s are still like average movies.
So I guess I'll give you a John Travolta. No, I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm gonna give it a 4, just because the cinematography, I think of the skills that it took to make this movie was absolutely stunning. It was brilliant the way because there's not too many movies who have done the same type of filming successfully. And also the iconic scenes, like they're giving us iconic moments that we get to reference for the rest of our lives. And so altogether, I have to give it a 4. I wouldn't give it a 5 because there are some things I'd like them to work on or change if they had to do the same movie all over again, because they tried the remake. The remake to me is a 3, but we can get to that scale later. But I do think it's a solid 4 for all the right reasons, for all the skills, the acting, the character development. They picked the right actors for it. They did a lot of good with this.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 3.2. That's where I'm gonna land on this one. Still a fantastic movie. Just because it's not higher or you think it's higher, I definitely, it's still a movie I'd recommend to people. I still think you should seek it out if you've never watched it. I still think it's a good movie. If it's there, it's like, oh, I'm gonna carry mood tonight. Any takeaways? Did this movie leave an impression on you to maybe conduct yourself differently or look at society differently? Or did you get anything from Carrie, or is Carrie even just as a culture thing? I know we talked about a little bit or touched on some of them, but what's the biggest thing or the biggest takeaway for you is for Carrie?
The two biggest things is always, everyone's so focused on the entrance of a look, but you need the exit of the look. And she gives that most iconic exit scene ever. So yeah. You definitely need to also have an exit look. The other thing I learned though was, even if you're helping someone, protecting them, it doesn't mean it always ends good at the end. Because, right, the teacher still dies. The people who were still there, like the only reason why the one who lived, who was nice to Carrie, was out of just not being there. She would have still died. She would have still been part of the things. And so sometimes, like, when I look at Carrie, as much as I have empathy and sympathy for her, like, I'm gonna mind my business some days. Like, it doesn't mean I'm not gonna help her, but it also,
the teacher actually saves her life because she thinks she's the one pulling the prank, and she pushes her out the door right before they slam shut. There you go.
Right, but if she didn't do that, she would have been dead.
Yeah, she would have been in the gym.
It was
dead.
Luck. To me, it was luck.
Yeah, 100% luck. Yeah. For me, it's one of those things where you shouldn't bully people, because what if they get telekinesis powers and then you're fucked? Treat people how you want to be treated. It's a classic. Sometimes your parents aren't always right, and you got to experience life on yourself. But also, like, school is cruel, and it can be really hard for people. And maybe don't judge a book by its cover, and just treat people correctly. And that's my biggest takeaway. It's one of those. It's one of those easy tropes that are layups when it comes to movies, but still in society, we don't give a shit. And we go to our jobs, and we go to school, because it doesn't end at school. Sometimes it carries over to the job, and it carries over to places you go, and everyone has that one person that everyone kind of shits on or judges or treats awful, and it's not good. And you shouldn't do that to people. And this is why horror movies are good for people, because you learn life lessons, Fun facts awards. We kind of talked about awards already, and some show and tell. The only thing I have is I have the book. I don't want to get off camera right now. Maybe I'll get it in a second. But your show and tell is obviously you did the look today. I have a shirt. I don't know if it's in print anymore, but I love the company called Fright Rags. If you're into horror movies, if you're into that, I'm a shirt person. So for me, when I buy a shirt, I'm going to stand up for a second. I don't like when I wash a shirt and I lift my hands up and it becomes a little, my tummy sticks out a little bit. I'm kind of strong with tum, but when a shirt gets washed and it still fits nice in the chest and the arms, but it still stays long, I love it. Fright Rags is an A+ when it comes to those shirts. But this is the Fright Rag shirt.
Love it.
So they can't use all the time. Like sometimes they get the ability to put licensed imagery on t-shirts, but sometimes they can't. Like the actors or actresses do not give their permission. So they have to get creative with other artists and they commission different artists to do really cool designs. I really like this one because it still showed Carrie, but it also it was an artist rendition of it. They usually have the cool lines on it. But Fright Rags, great company. I've interviewed the owner of Fright Rags tons of times on my old content. But yeah, that's my little show and tell. I did have a Funko Pop of Carrie, but I think I sold it, so I don't have that anymore. But I used to. But I think it was the remake of Carrie. They don't think they made original merchandise. Nancy Allen claims. So here's some trivia, or did you know? So Nancy Allen claims she never realized her character was going to be so evil until she saw the finished film. She thought John Travolta and her were playing such self-centered, bickering morons that they were more of comic relief. So when they went back and watched the movie, they were like, "Oh shit, I thought we were more funny than anything," which makes sense because they were actually kind of like the acting was kind of cheesy. When Sissy Spacek was preparing for the character, she isolated herself from the rest of the ensemble, decorated her dressing room with heavy religious iconography, and studied Gustav's Delors illustrated Bible. She studied the body language of people being stoned for their sins and starting and ending every scene in one of those positions. Interesting. I did not know that. The last scene of the film, A.B. Irving's outburst is so terrified in her real life mother. She screamed out Amy instead of Sue, and she had never seen her daughter that hysterical and cried out her real name in concern. However, the loud ending music covered the mistake. So she went for it on that last scene. While speaking at a book event in Fort Myers, Florida in 2010, Stephen King recalled that he was paid just $2,500 for the movie rights of Carrie. Yikes. You write the book and only get paid almost $3,000 for the rights? Jesus. The name of the high school is Bates High. It's a reference to Norman Bates from Psycho. I did not know that. And the fourth note violin theme from Psycho is used over and over in the film. Yeah. Yep. The dizzy camera shots during the prom scene was achieved by placing William Katt and Sissy Spacek on platforms that were spinning in one direction while the camera was dollied and going in the opposite direction. That's pretty dope. Oh, wow. So she, while filming the blood scene, so this is that's the one thing I was always concerned, like worried when you film, like when you do a blood scene like that, you have to, like, if you don't have the same, because you can notice when the first blood hits her, and then as the scene gets on, somehow more blood is on her than what the original bucket hit her with. She gets bloodier, if that makes sense. But when they were filming the blood prom sequence, Spacek's trailer was parked behind the set. After being covered in fake blood for continuity purposes, Spacek refused to wash the effect off. She elected to then sleep in her bloody clothes for 3 days of filming. So that ending scene took 3 days to do, and she stayed in her clothes in that blood for 3 days. That's crazy. When I interviewed
that's disgusting.
The guy who played Zelda in the original Pet Sematary. So Zelda, the sister, is actually played by a man, and he had to stay up for almost 48 hours in his prosthetics to make it look like his back was sticking out. And he said he didn't sleep for almost 2.5 days, and he had to stay in that makeup because they only had enough props to do that maybe once or twice. And he stayed in that scene, and he was one of the last things filmed. So most of the film was shot already, and then he was the last thing to come in for his shots because his special effects makeup was so intense. But he had to stay in it for like almost 2 or 3 days. Yeah, crazy. Andrew Hubachek. He's from Bloomsburg. It's pretty much all I got. There's a lot more show and tell stuff. If you want to learn more things about the movie, go check out imdb.com. That's where I get my stuff. There is a trivia section that you can learn some more fun things. But overall, I love Carrie. So you're going to come back and we're going to be doing the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So we're going to start from the first one and go through, and then maybe halfway through, we're going to take a break and maybe do a Carrie reboot. And then there's going to be some, we have already kind of talked about it. So fellow co-host Dante, who does a lot of these horror movie things, myself, Jake, and Lily will be all doing a movie review together. We're going to be doing a few of those coming up very soon. We're actually going to be filming them. They won't be live for you guys to be in the chat. So when it airs live, we will be in the chat typing with you, but they won't be live for us to be talking to you. There is going to be some pieces of content coming up that won't be this live aspect. It'll be filmed and then put out later. This whole idea that I'm doing now is only this way because I don't have the funds to get the cameras I want. I'm working on it. It's hard between, life and paying bills. And I for 2 years of getting myself caught back up. But I will eventually get there. This is why, support, donations, t-shirts, all that helps out. But when I get the cameras I want to do more film reviews in person with people, or interviews in person, because I think the backdrop shots are important to me. So we're getting there. And the camera choice for me is very important because I have a little bit of a joint disorder. So it's hard for me to lug around a lot of equipment, and the cameras I have are really nice quality, really good in low light. So I don't have to lug around big lights. And also everything's super portable, and I could put like a 3-camera shot in a fanny pack, which is super cool. But that's what we're working on. So a lot of this will change in the near future. We have a ton more content coming out. You will be seeing Jake and Trixy, Jake or Trixy, depending on what persona shows up, more on the podcast. Yes, and we will be doing, I've never seen it, but we'll be doing Mean Girls as our movie, our 4-way movie. You also might be seeing Ari, who's in the chat, on some stuff. Her and her partner, Drive-In, will be on some stuff. I met them. I love them so much. They are everything that I need in people when it comes to like horror and pro wrestling. There's some other people in that friend group. I don't want to put them out there in case they don't want their business out there, but they make great content as well. I love them so much. But there's a lot of cool people that I'm going to be making more content with and reviewing movies. So be on the lookout for more. Please follow Trixy Valentine on social media, as well as Juicy with Jake on all social media. They do great. They'll be doing more TikTok lives, so you can go over and support them all so much. They have a YouTube channel. They do their own podcast. So plug your podcast. Let's talk about that real quick.
Oh, my podcast is Glitter on My Tips. Every time I say it, I have to shimmy, which is about the professional leadership and business side of drag, and how I continue to have the conversation from my book that I wrote called Tipping is a Must. You can find on Amazon. And the podcast in itself is just supposed to be entertaining. I do bring a lot of drag entertainment on it, but I also bring people who are audience members and have other professions that work with drag entertainment. And I really try to hype in the level of drag is more than just an art form. We can learn valuable skills. We learn reasoning with connecting with people. And we really get into the understanding of like what the art forms and where drag can honestly shake that glitter off from my tip, Tip.
I love it. I'm falling in love with drag as much, and this is a tough thing to say. I love professional wrestling. I love professional wrestling so much. I think it's an art form that should be studied. I think it's an art form that gets ripped off and pulled from so much, and so much of other media and art come from pro wrestling. And drag is slowly filling a void of that as much as pro wrestling does. Like, I think it's a really beautiful art form, and I think it's more than just, I think when people boil it down that are bigoted or don't understand it or think it's so much of other things, it's really not. And until you really dive into the scene and go to shows and talk to the performers and talk to them as people and understand what drag is essentially at its core, it's beautiful. I love it so much, and I'm so happy that you brought me into it and have been educating me and introducing me to more amazing people in this scene, and I can't wait to talk to more. And we have more. Listen, talking about drag and queer culture and LGBTQ rights and all of that isn't just 1 month for me on this podcast. We will be showcasing people, the community, all year round. And that's something I'm going to take a lot of pride into, and giving a voice for people in different art forms. And that's all because of your amazing education and acceptance. And I love you so much.
I love you, Anthony. Thank you.
Yes. Anything else you want to plug before we get out of here, or talk about? Anything you got coming up?
I mean, I have a show tomorrow in New Jersey, but other than that, I think I'm okay. Keep following, keep seeing. There's a lot of stuff coming up in the works, so I can't talk about it just yet because I would like to have my details before I say anything. But you're going to want to be there.
All right. I think I do have one more plug, and if I don't do this, I feel like I'm a bad partner here. Where is that thing? I'm doing it live. I'm uploading it as we speak. I'm filibustering. By the way, we both have our championships here. So you have your Miss Trans New Jersey 2000, and I have my brand new TWF Intercontinental YouTube champion. But also, if you obviously you can't get enough of Trixy Valentine, there's another platform you can see them on, and that's Witchcraft by Lily Fighting with Fashion with Jacob Kelly. So make sure you head over to Witchcraft by Lily on YouTube and support that channel where Jake and Lily break down all of the looks of Trixy Valentine, who Trixy Valentine is, and it's also, once again, a very educational podcast, and you guys should go listen and support it and show it love. So that's all I got. So here's some music by the Converse Kid. We love you all so much. We'll be back once again tomorrow with a little tornado tag for the pro wrestling fans out there. We'll be covering the show, The King of the Ring, 1995. It's an absolute dog shit show. It's a lot of fun, though, but we're going to have some fun and kind of pick it apart. So we'll see you guys tomorrow at, I think, 9 o'clock. We'll be doing that one, or 7 o'clock. Or no, actually, that one's at 6:30. We're going to go 6:30 so I can still watch wrestling at 7 because AEW, you don't know what any of this means, Jake. I'm sorry. But that's going to do it. We're out of here. Love you guys. Bye-bye. Here's music by the Converse Kid.